I'd like to welcome to the stage Yuneeb Khan. He's the Global President of Consumer Insights at Nielsen IQ.
Well, first of all, good afternoon, and thank you for having me here. It's just an honor and privilege to be here today. And before I start, such a great event. Big congratulations to the organizers of the event for putting this together in what I just heard today in a very short period of 3 weeks. And a personal thank you for all the trouble that all of you went through to accommodate me. I had a bit of a travel glitch yesterday, but thanks to the fantastic organization, all of those things were sorted. My name is Yuneeb Khan. I lead the Global Consumer Insights business at Nielsen IQ. We have about 15, 20 minutes together. And what I want to do today is really focus on human beings. In Nielsen, we study human beings. We take the lens of a consumer. That lens of a consumer could be applied to consumer of goods and services. They could be applied to somebody who's using banking services, insurance services, government services. So it's a very broad lens, and we really study human beings, which is really the central essence of my talk today. Why am I choosing this topic? The theme of this meeting is strategic communication, and at the heart of any strategic communication lies a human being. It's the behavior of those human beings that we have to understand. It's the factors that influence the behaviors of that human being. If we understand them, we can create an effective communication strategy. So I'm going to build it up in 3 different ways. I'm going to talk about consumer in a pre-pandemic era. I'm going to very quickly touch upon the massive amount of change that we all went through the pandemic. And then I'm going to talk about some of the things that we have in mind and we help our clients with as they recalibrate their strategies to engage with the consumers of the future. And lastly, in a typical exit through the gift shop fashion, I will show you what we are doing, and I will show you a video of one of our products as well. So let's jump right into it. And I want to talk about Nielsen, just for like in a minute or so. In the room, how many of you know Nielsen? Just raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7. All right. Well, first of all, thank you for your engagement, and for you, those of you who don't know Nielsen, looking forward to connecting with you. Nielsen was established about 100 years ago, 98 years to be precise. A young engineer called Arthur C. Nielsen in 1923 borrowed $45,000 from his friends and family and established the company that we know as Nielsen today. What he created at that point in time was the understanding or the concept of market share. Take a step back and think about market share. Market share is very simply a trustworthy unit of measure. It is the language, the glue that actually makes the whole commercial ecosystem talk to each other. It is that truth that is needed so that this ecosystem understand, all the parties that are involved in this ecosystem understand each other. Back then in 1923, when people used to ask him, why are you doing this? And why would somebody even pay for it? His answer used to be very simple, because the price of light is always less than the cost of darkness. The price of light is always less than the cost of darkness. And think about this in the context of today. Today, when we live in a radically different world, almost 100 years have passed. The human population is probably 6, 7 times high. Economies are complex. Societies are complex. The technology is very, very advanced. Even Nielsen is very complex. We operate now in 100-odd countries. But these words have exactly the same meaning as they had back then. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So now, let's take a step back and think about the consumer. It's not okay. And think about the pre-pandemic era, let's say 2019, early 2020. And let's play a little fun game. So let's, for fun, give a name to this consumer. Let's call this consumer Happy. All right? Let's call him Mr. Happy. Mr. Happy is an average consumer who's living in 2019, 2020. The world is evolving around Mr. Happy. There is change in the air, but we can at least understand the change. We in Nielsen have been studying that change for several decades. Mr. Happy is experimentative, which means Mr. Happy likes to do new things, likes to go to new restaurants, try new clothes, try new trends, all those nice things. Mr. Happy is environmentally conscious. And most importantly, Mr. Happy wants to understand how all the environmental concerns apply to him and what he can do for himself and for the society. But the biggest fear that Mr. Happy had was fear of missing out, FOMO. There are a lot of new trends out there that he or she wants to capture, and those trends are being fed to Mr. Happy through digital media. He's very digitally savvy. Now let's take a step back and look at Mr. Happy. And it will remind you of you or me or anybody else. And we have been looking at this. We had norms, databases, we had benchmarks through which we can understand the behavior of Mr. Happy and how the behavior is changing. And with a little bit of mathematical mumbo-jumbo, we could even predict the future. Now let's look at the world around Mr. Happy. The world around Mr. Happy was never static. Change was the only constant. For the past 100 years, especially in the last 2 decades, we have changed immensely. But there was a method to the madness. We could understand the waves. A typical year used to start slow. Second quarter sales used to pick up. They used to stabilize in third quarter. And then the madness of November used to happen. Starting off with Singles' Day, where the question that everybody had on their mind was how many more billions will Alibaba make through their e-commerce festival, if you can call it that. Next up was Black Friday. We were all wondering what kind of madness awaits us when the gates open and people go rushing looking for those bargains on Black Friday. And last but not the least, were all the festivals that happen in between. Christmas, Eid, Diwali, Chinese New Year's, all of these used to generate certain behavior. And every single year used to be different than the year before, but there was norms underneath it. We could understand what is going on. We could make sense of it. We understood the waves. The whole thing changed in 2020. I don't have to stand here and tell you the impact of 2020. You are more knowledgeable about me at the macro level than I would ever be, but it has affected all of us in a direct way, and it has affected the consumers the world over. This change happened very quickly. It was very big, very widely spread, and our understanding of normal was not relevant anymore. We all know that things which used to be alternative, like video conferencing, working from home, became integral to the work life. We all know that weddings, funerals, lectures, even first dates started to happen on Zoom. New economies were born, new channels were created. And this happened in a course of less than a year. Our understanding of norm didn't exist anymore. And with this came the era of volatility, reactiveness. We have more information that we ever had. We have more processing speed than we ever had. And we live in a time where there is a lot of volatility and reactiveness in the marketplace and in the world. We live in the time of meme stock. We live in the time when a simple tweet can create financial impact worth trillions of dollars. We live in a time where even a blip on the pattern of virus could create havoc in the world travel industry. There is a lot of reactiveness in the air. And while this reactiveness, for my sake and your and for the sake of the world, will hopefully slow down once the world emerges from pandemic and things become normal, they are trends which will have a long-term consequence. All this lifestyle changes, advent of technology, all of these things are having a huge impact on the mental health of our consumers. We live in the time of great resignation. There is labor shortages. Just imagine, jobs are available, but people are leaving jobs. That trend we have never seen in our lifetime or ever. Our supply chain is broken both at the back end as well as on the front end when it comes to last mile. And last but not the least, there is inflation. Inflation that has become real. The prices of commodities have gone up, albeit different when it comes to different countries. You know all of these things, so why did I spend 10 minutes talking about it? Because I wanted to give you a picture of what all of us, because all of us are Mr. Happy, went through in the past 2 years. Now think about Mr. Happy. Take a step back. Mr. Happy is Mr. Not So Happy now. Because Mr. Happy has to think about a lot of other things. In addition to all of those things that was in the mind of Mr. Happy, now he has to adapt brand new technologies. He has to adjust his lifestyle. He has to face the challenges of uncertainty, and he doesn't know what kind of macroeconomic impact his own life is going to have. The behavior, the perception of Mr. Happy is radically different now than it was maybe 18 months ago, and our norms and data that we had collected for decades doesn't do justice in understanding Mr. Happy. Now, we have been watching all of this. Companies like Nielsen and our peers, we have been watching all of this. We have been trying to understand the changes in trend, and it has been showing up in data. And let me give you some data points that will demonstrate the level of change that has happened. Nielsen conducts a survey. It's called Global Shopper Trend every year. In 2020, we conducted it twice because we wanted to understand what was going on with the world and how things were evolving. Malaysia, a typical developing market. Our surveys revealed that 86% of the people that we interviewed, 86% of them were shopping hybrid. 86%. This was shocking because last year, as in 2019, these percentages were opposite. 86% of the people in Malaysia were not shopping online. They were shopping in brick-and-mortar store. I actually was a bit surprised about this data up until we saw the other data, which was how much has been sold from e-commerce. And you can see over here, almost all major commodities, more than 50% of their sale happen in an online channel. The only area where online was not picking up throughout 2020 was probably fresh products or furniture. Even that trend is changing. We conducted another survey where we talked to people about what they think is going to be of critical importance in a post-pandemic era. Overwhelming response was mental health and physical health. 56% reported that mental health is going to be more important than anything. 57% reported the same thing for physical health. People have worries like financial and job security on their mind, as well as saving for the unforeseen. The whole trend has changed. And I will be very, very honest. The new normal is just about to, this is being established. We have been observing it, but we, in Nielsen, our peers, together with all of you guys, we have a need to take a step back and reflect. And reflect as to what this change means, how we develop methodologies, norms through which our understanding of the consumer remains as effective as it was before. The answer to that is really, it's not more data. I mean, we have a lot of data already. We can't throw more data to the equation. The answer is really reflection and recalibration. We have to take a step back and recalibrate our understanding of markets, consumers. We have to reestablish our link with Mr. Happy. And the way to do this is a combination of three things: trusted data, reliable technology, and deep expertise. All these three things have to come together for this recalibration to happen. Data that comes from reliable sources has been processed from technology that has been tried and tested and analyzed by people who actually know what they are doing. I call this the great recalibration. And this great recalibration needs to happen at all levels. And I'm going to take the lens of a consumer, a business lens, but it could be applied to anything. We need to redefine experience. We need to redefine what people like or not like. What are the building blocks of what is a good experience or a bad experience? That redefinition is going to link into our marketing and communication strategies. And linked to it would be reestablishment of our understanding of what kind of data and insights we would need in the new world. Notice that I'm talking future tense right now. We are smack in the middle of a pandemic still. Well, we are coming out of it, but the norms need to be established through this recalibration. Now, let me unpack it for you. Let's talk about customer experience. We all understand what experience is in an offline world. We all go to stores. We have been going there since we were little children. It's all about interaction. You interact with the store. You touch and feel the product. You try out new things. You maybe you like the color. You taste, you smell. There is a lot of interactiveness that happens with the store. And not to dwell on it too much, but as you're navigating through the stores, as you fill up your basket or your cart and you go to the counter, you actually make a purchase. You don't walk away. Very, very few times you walk away, and if you walk away, you're actually hiding from the people because it's kind of embarrassing. That's the experience of an offline world. We all know it. An online world, the experience is slightly different. It's about convenience. It's about how many products are available. It's about how safe it is to pay. Do you trust them or not? And most importantly, all of us in the room, I can guarantee you, I'm guilty of that. I spent 2 hours on a website, filled up my electronic basket, and not made a purchase. They are two radically different experiences. The problem is 86% of happies are shopping both online and offline. We have to merge these two things together. Effective communication strategy, effective marketing plans, effective engagement strategy about the consumer would require a 360-degree reevaluation of our understanding of how an omni-consumer functions. Now let's talk about the marketing strategy, which is a little separate than the communications theme, but it's kind of linked to it because all you're doing is you're actually connecting with your target audience. The traditional market strategy was very broadcast-based. What do I mean by that? You used to develop a concept, you used to develop an advertisement, and then you used to blast it. Blast it in the newspaper, blast it in the TV, blast it in the billboard. You used to literally hammer it to the masses. That doesn't really work anymore because people have so much technology, so much capability, so much data on their hand that they can call you a bluff. 73% of the people actually compare the prices of one retailer than the other. An equal proportion of the consumers actually like the retailers that have reviews on their website. And an equal proportion of consumers actually compare the demographics of products which are on sale in one shop or the others. They can call you a bluff. So mass communication, mass broadcasting that used to work very well in the past does not really work anymore. We have to adopt things which are very, very personal. Personalized, by using the technology and the data that we have, and that's where machine learning AI comes in. That's where even concept testing, which I don't know how many of you are familiar with or not, that has to be done by using latest technology where you can interact with the future in a virtual world. And I will show you an example of that so that it just resonates with you or it comes to life. Last but not the least is a marketing concept called consumer paths to purchase, which is critical because you have to understand that path to purchase to be able to connect to the consumer at every single juncture point. And that path to purchase looks radically different than how it used to be 18 months ago. Radically different. Our data suggests that at an average, all of us, at an average, happies, they have 9 store visits each week. 9 store visits each week. Our data suggests, or this is basically coming from the masses that we talk to, that of these store visits, at least one of them is a new store. And these 9 store visits are online and offline. Now, this data doesn't tell you anything, but when you look at it in conjunction with last year, this data is radically different. You know what? This is 1/3 of the store visit activity that was happening in the past. And the demographics are different because now you're doing online and offline completely, so the whole paradigm is different than it used to be 18 months ago. That requires us to really understand all the nodes of the paths to purchase or the paths to service consumption of a consumer, be it the consumer of any kind of product and services. And that has to be done, like I said, through a diverse set of data, not just the traditional data that used to come from one source or the other, through a diverse set of reliable data and processed by experts that can not only give you the insights to make sense out of that data, they can also help in developing the capabilities to bring those insights to action. That brings me to the last part of this session, which is what are we doing about it? Consumer insights was established. We always had a consumer insights practice in Nielsen, but we brought all the products together under one umbrella last year. And our motto was really to zero in on the consumer. And that consumer, mind you, is not just the consumer of typical goods and services. It's basically consumer in a broad sense. Really zero in and really understand how the mindset works. Understand what influences the brain before any kind of shopping thought comes to your mind. How does the brain get influenced by interaction with brand? How does the brain get influenced by reviews? How does the brain get influenced by the information that is coming to you from your friends and family, from social media? All of that is programming that happens in your mind, and you take that programming to a store. And then you interact with the store. And it doesn't really matter whether that store is a real store or a virtual store. You interact with it. You click your way through. You walk through the aisles. The behavior needs to be understood. Then consumption happens. And it's not about what you're consuming, but where are you consuming it? How you're consuming it? Who are you with? What is the occasion in which that particular consumption is happening? And last but not the least, what is the experience that you get out of that consumption? All of that is what we study. Marketeers define this as moments of truth. We study those moments of truth. Every single moment of truth is important. We have products and services through which we'll really zero in and understand what each moment of truth means, and we connect the dots. And we do it by exactly what I described to you. Data that comes from 100 markets, data that comes from 8 million different interviews. It's processed through frameworks that we have had for a pretty long time, experts which have been there for more than 50 years, and global data, including data coming from markets which are very, very difficult to understand. Let me show you an example of how all of this comes to life. This is a product that we developed not too long ago. It's called Smart Store. I get goosebumps whenever I look at it because I think it's a very neat product. I hope you enjoy it as well.
Shopper behavior is changing at an unprecedented rate due to dramatic shifts in the retail landscape and the influence of world events on the shopper psyche. As a result, looking back at what happened is no longer a reliable predictor of future shopper behavior. Despite this seismic shift, 65% of shoppers still prefer to shop in-store. To understand how a shopper will respond to a new scenario, we need to place them in that future state to observe how they would behave within the actual store. Often, this is an iterative process and requires an agile research partner. Nielsen IQ Smart Store is a 360-degree virtual online solution that gives you a proving ground to test your total store, aisle, and shelf scenarios. With Smart Store, you can test your vision of a future state experiment with merchandising scenarios and build in-store strategies to maximize your growth in retail. Smart Store is the only virtual store research solution in the industry that can provide you with a size of prize metric predicting the growth of your brand and category. With Smart Store, you can complete your research cycle in as little as 6 weeks and be armed with retail-ready results from your shopper research analyst. Think like a shopper to decipher decision-making at the point of purchase to understand the why behind the buy. The best way to predict the future is to create it.
Pretty cool, huh? All right, I've taken, I think, maybe 3-4 minutes extra, so I apologize for that, but I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. Really, it's I giggle every time I see this video, and I'll talk about our capabilities. As you can tell, I'm pretty proud of it. And I really would like to invite you to learn a little bit more about the capabilities and products that we have. We do think that our understanding of consumer, our understanding of how consumer behavior evolves can play a very pivotal role in developing of marketing and communication strategy, no matter what sector you operate in. And most importantly, I'm a strong believer of co-creation. Our world has changed very radically, and that change is not going to slow down. So let's figure out ways to co-create a better and more informed world. And always remember, no matter what era you're living in, the price of light is always lower than the cost of darkness. Thank you very much.